Hey John, how you doing? This
Good,
is
how are you?
NAMM, 30 years of Yamaha digital mixers. I don't believe
years.
it.
Isn't it crazy? Seems like yesterday.
It is, and you've been kind of with the company for almost as long as the mixers, right?
I started the year that this first digital mixer came out. I was so very fortunate to have a job here. I never thought it would last 30 years.
So this is the classic DMP7.
Yeah.
This is kind of the first.
It was our first foray into digital mixing. And so what you're looking at here is an 8-in, 2-out, line level mixer. It doesn't even have mic pre's. And it was $3,600.
Yeah, it was expensive.
It was scary, but it had, at the time, unheard of things. It had 3 processors in it for reverb and delay and stuff like that.
Were they kind of SPX based?
Yeah, exactly. That was where they came from.
Did they have channel processing as well, like dynamics and EQ?
That was the first time to actually put that in a console. Up until that point, people had to buy an outboard device. So it was able to put it in, if it's going to be ones and zeros, now it could be manipulated in the console.
And the first to have moving faders as well, wasn't it?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, the moving faders were the thing, the ghost in the machine has become...
Boy, were they noisy, I remember, yeah.
Oh yeah, and jittery, they would get a little bit old and jittery, but yeah, it's, oddly enough, all this product still works.
Wow, that's amazing. So then we got...
So as you move along, you come up to the DMP11. That was a couple years later. And this was our attempt to help cut the cost. So these aren't moving faders, but that was a digital mixer. And it still had all the processing power of the DMP7, but without the moving faders, and it's in a more of a compact chassis. Again, more aimed at a keyboard player than a live
because people used
sound.
to take these on the road, didn't they? And kind of, sub-mixers especially.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, these defined the sound of the 80s, along with the DX7s and TX keyboards.
Gated reverb, I believe, being
of course.
early reflections.
There you go.
So what's this next guy?
So as you come around a little further, when we got into the 90s,
I don't remember this
we
guy.
had the DMP9, which was this mixer now offered for the first time a ton of inputs and the ability to have all that processing power on all those channels. So you had that ability to really get in there and fine tune, but to be able to have those presets. And again, the lack of moving faders kept the price of this as affordable.
And whether that was in the 90s, what was that? Do you remember the price of that guy?
I do not remember the price of this one.
It looks expensive to me.
It looks it, but it wasn't so bad.
Still looks expensive.
Well, I do know the price of this next one though.
I had one of
I think
these.
everybody's seen this.
This was my first Yamaha digital mixer, actually.
Yep, the Pro Mix 01 was the most. It was the first console that I could say you could mix the whole band with it, because it had mic pre's and the ability to do all the things that you'd need for a whole band rather than just keyboard players. But it had moving faders, and it's still to this day, believe it or not, they still work.
Bless him.
Yeah, we were able to find one that was pristine. So you had everything you needed, but it gave you some EQ. We maximized the DSP at the time. We had 3 bands of EQ on that. On some of these mixers nowadays, 3-band EQ is passé. But this was fully, at $2,000, was $1995. It was amazing value for what it was.
Well, it was the first time that I could afford one, because I remember I was working on projects that needed recall.
Yes.
And that's what I used it for. But the busing was very basic.
Yes. And again, only 4 aux buses, and 2 of them were taken up for the internal effects processors. So it had its drawbacks. But for a small band, we could actually give them something they could use that was affordable.
So you say you were involved in the digital mixing division. What was your role?
Our role at that time was to come up with the feature set. So we would argue a feature set versus cost, so that we could find the balance to get the customer the proper amount of processing, but not break his bank.
Okay, so here's a question, if you can remember. What was the favorite feature that you fought for that you got on one of these mixes?
It would have been the presets that are in the console. We needed basic presets so that guys could get in there and get the preset settings for EQ, for reverb.
They had sort of kicks and snares and stuff that you could dial. That's right.
It was so important that during the development of most of the digital products, SPX 90 in particular, many of those presets were never changed by the users. The presets were that good.
Yeah. Well, I
It's
do
very
remember,
well
yeah.
done. Yeah.
I do remember.
And there were a lot of work and a lot of professional input from guys that are much more qualified than I.
It's funny, and even now the SPX 90 is sort of coming back into vogue, isn't it? That kind of sound.
Well, we can't get rid of that gated reverb sound.
So 01V, this is more recent.
And this was the original 01V in 1999. This showed up, and this was the mixer that gave you the mic pre's still from the ProMix 01, but it also had the digital card in the back so that we could support all those new digital formats. Because the 90s brought us all the ADAT, TDIF, AES, EBU. We had to make a format card to support all those different things, and this mixer was the first to do that.
Ah, okay, and because I had an 03D, I think it was.
Yep.
Was that after this?
The 03D came after this. The 03D had surround panning. It had some other features that this didn't have at the time.
Had buses, didn't it?
Yes, it had multiple buses, whereas this was more of a stereo board.
But you could use this as a recording interface as well.
Absolutely, absolutely. It had the I/O because it had the card slot on the back, so you could get digitally out of the direct out.
And so, what's this big old board full of DSP?
Well, the thing, I wanted somebody to see this. It dawned on me that of all of our manufacturing friends, we're the only ones who make the chips that actually go in our products. These products, if we didn't have our own LSI, we wouldn't have been able to give you the processing power that we had.
So what, are these all like
DSP? This particular circuit board that you're looking at and where you're zoomed in on are the main mixing engines for a PM5D. These are the effect engines up at the top and down at the bottom of the output section, processing. But you think about the complex math of all those ones and zeros, keeping them in time and having that much processing and all that math data to keep up with. That's where the LSI chips that we came up with and our teams with the in that area were able to really come a long way. Nowadays, you buy a breadboarded chip from TI or another company and build it from their scratch.
Build it around the, yeah, so.
Well, we built it when we needed it.
And so how much do these consoles sort of share with the heritage of your current range of like front of house digital consoles?
Each one of these had us learn a little bit more about what the customer really wanted, and we try very hard as we move forward to keep the, as people have developed like the iPad, we wanted that kind of form factor in our consoles. So as we move forward, you'll see us taking what is becoming the standard and putting it in our consoles. We want, in the case of live mixing, to get to good sound faster.
And I noticed you've got some like consoles over here, which is where you were. Could we go and have a look?
We'll walk over and I'll show you the latest ones. Our latest consoles are these TF series. This series, you just go over here, this series, this is the TF5, which has a 32 input console, but runs completely from a touchpad, the touch screen. It's as if it's a little Apple iPad up there, and you can completely run it. Oh, totally. Yeah, you can get into one of the smaller ones. You can see it. There you are. So you can see from here, to go from a screen where it was constantly pressing and going to different places, now we can do things very quickly, and we work much faster here than we could have ever worked on a non-touch screen.
So are these designed for front of house or studio?
Yes, this is more of a live console. All of those boards over there were made for live production, and this is just an outgrowth of those.
So is all the I/O on board on these, or do you think they have
It's both. You have all the I/O available, but then we also have the ability to remote them.
Right, so what are you using? You do Dante or?
We use Dante, and we have developed our, we took a 64-channel Dante card for this, so plenty of I/O.
Do you have I/O options, like if you want to put AES50 in or whatever?
The only option we have is Dante.
Right, okay.
Because we wanted to keep with the live console feel. It supports multi-track recording, so we have no reason to get out of it digitally.
And I've noticed here you've got an interesting approach to the scribble
Of course,
stip. You've
yes.
got LED colouring then plus
Yes.
the scribble stip on top, which is...
Yeah, and of course the motorized faders, everything that the customers are expecting to see these days.
John, thank you very much.
Thank you very
That's
much.
fascinating. Thanks.
Yeah,
Nice
30
to meet you.
years, man. It's a long time.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet you. Take care.